What happens when a force rises within you that you never asked for? When buried grief, unspoken betrayal, and latent energy converge into a single, unstoppable current. Can the body, the heart, and the mind withstand the awakening of the inner serpent? For centuries, sages have spoken of this subtle yet powerful energy, Kundalini Shakti, coiled at the base of the spine, waiting for the right moment to awaken. In Buddhist teachings, it is akin to the mind's innate luminosity, hidden beneath layers of conditioning and samskaras, deep subconscious impressions, waiting for awareness to ignite it. In yogic traditions, especially the Shiva and Kaula tantras, it is depicted as a serpent, sometimes fierce and untamed, sometimes calm and disciplined, depending on how it rises. There are primarily two paths through which Kundalini awakens. One is sudden, often triggered by intense life events, grief, or karmic forces, called Chanda Udaya, the fierce rising. The other is gradual, nurtured through meditation, pranayama, and disciplined practice, Shanta Shakti, the calm ascent. Both paths reach the same summit, though the journey, intensity, and experiences along the way differ. Buddhist teachings emphasize witnessing, mindfulness, and compassion during any upheaval, while yogic scriptures provide maps of energy, chakras, knots, and visions to integrate the process. This exploration invites you to see Kundalini awakening not as a distant mystical idea, but as a living, embodied experience, manifesting in the body, emotions, dreams, and intuition. Whether you are a meditator or a seeker navigating life's storms, this force has a language of its own. Understanding it offers clarity, peace, and empowerment. The Serpent's Ascent, two paths to transcendence. The chaotic path, life-forced awakening. Chanda Udaya, the fierce, sudden rising. Ancient texts such as the Yoga Kundalini Upanishad, Kaulajnanirnaya, an esoteric tantric manual, and Tantra Loka describe the rise of Kundalini through life-forced awakening as sudden, fierce, and unavoidable. The serpent emerges from the depths of the unconscious, not through deliberate practice, but through the shock of unresolved samskaras, deep subconscious impressions. It strikes like lightning into the nervous system, awakening emotional, physical, and psychic centers at once. The body becomes a theater of karmic memory, and the mind is often thrown into fire. Dreams of massive serpents at the ocean floor, biting at the spine, or undulating in vast currents of water symbolize the surfacing of deep-seated identity patterns and emotional entanglements. The signs are vivid and often overwhelming. Emotional storms surge unpredictably. Grief rises without warning. Anger can crash like a tidal wave. Despair drifts in and out like shifting clouds. Physical tension may appear along the spine, abdomen, or knees, as if the body resists the force moving within. Sleep may fragment, dreams intensify, and unusual synchronicities emerge. Birds entering rooms, insects lingering, fleeting visions of sacred spaces. The ancient texts describe this as a fire that burns quickly, clearing latent impurities, but testing the vessel that contains it. Those unprepared may feel abandoned, as if their own body has betrayed them. Yet with endurance, awareness, and mindful observation, this fire can transform into light. The disciplined path, meditation, sadhana, induced awakening, Shanta Shakti, the calm, disciplined ascent. The calm, disciplined rise of Kundalini, as described in the Shiva Samhita, Hatha Yoga, Pradipika, and Garanda Samhita, unfolds gradually. Here, the serpent awakens step by step through consistent practice of pranayama, breath discipline, dhyana, meditation, tapasya, disciplined effort or austerity, and mindful awareness. Physical sensations along the chakras emerge slowly. Emotional shifts are gentle, and dreams often include sages, palaces, and sacred visions. Sleep remains stable, and intuitive perception develops steadily. This path nourishes the vessels of the body and mind, allowing energy to rise without violent resistance. Integration is easier, emotional turbulence is gentler, and insights are more readily accessible in daily life. Here, the practitioner becomes a friend of the serpent rather than a survivor of its fire. The gradual unfolding is both a blessing and a safeguard. Which path leads to better results? Neither path is superior in reaching the ultimate union at Sahasrara, the 1,000-petaled crown. Life-forced awakening can bring rapid, intense clearing, but carries the risk of overwhelm and instability. The disciplined path may rise more slowly, but cultivates stability and resilience. As Tantraloka observes, the warrior who survives the fire reaches the peak quickly. The yogi who walks patiently reaches it surely. Both arrive. Think of the difference as fire versus sunlight. Sudden awakening is like fire. It burns impurities quickly, but may scorch the vessel. Gradual awakening is like sunlight. It warms and nourishes steadily, gently transforming the body and mind. Both paths reach the same summit. One may leave scars, the other leaves the body intact. The essential principle is readiness, patience, and compassionate self-observation. Ultimately, both paths converge on the same goal: full awakening of consciousness and union with higher energy at the crown. Life-forced awakening may accelerate the journey, but mastery and integration demand ongoing practice. The disciplined path may rise more slowly, yet the stability gained ensures energy is fully embodied and lived. Classical texts affirm that careful attention, integration, and presence, not speed, are the true measure of progress. The 7 stages of Kundalini awakening. Before diving into the stages, it is essential to recognize that Kundalini awakening is not linear or uniform. Each individual's journey is unique. Some may experience sudden surges of energy, emotional upheaval, and visions, while others move gradually, noticing subtle shifts in the body, mind, and awareness over weeks, months, or even years. The path, whether accelerated by life's forces or nurtured through disciplined practice, shapes the sensations, insights, and challenges encountered at each stage. Yet despite these differences, the stages provide a map, a guide to understanding how energy ascends through the body, how old patterns are confronted, and how integration unfolds. The following stages are not rigid steps, but living thresholds, each inviting presence, attention, and compassionate observation, with no fixed timeline for their completion. Stage 1. Brahma Granthi, the root awakening. The serpent rises in the deepest roots of being, stirring the foundations of survival, lineage, and early identity. For some, this awakening arrives suddenly, like a storm that shakes the ground beneath the feet. The trauma-driven path, the spontaneous ascent, can appear without warning, triggered by intense life events, deep grief, or old wounds resurfacing. One may feel the legs trembling, knees quivering, a strange, inexplicable fear coursing through the body. Dreams may be vivid, filled with coiled serpents, shadows moving beneath the surface, or scenes of being chased, testing the very survival instincts. Life itself seems unstable. Finances, relationships, family obligations, even familiar routines feel suddenly tenuous. Old childhood fears, long buried, resurface with startling clarity. The heart tightens as ancestral patterns, karmic residues, and early conditioning demand attention. The intensity can feel overwhelming, yet it is the first fire that clears the path for transformation. In contrast, those on the meditation-driven path, the disciplined ascent, experience this stage more gradually. The tremors in the legs and knees may come in subtle waves, almost imperceptible at first. Fear may rise not as a tempest, but as quiet undercurrents, surfacing during silent moments of reflection or meditation. Dreams, while less chaotic, hint at the same deep stirring. A serpent coiled gently beneath awareness, waiting to rise, sometimes appearing as a guardian rather than a threat. The body signals the movement subtly, shifts in energy, sensations of rootedness or pressure at the base of the spine, small, persistent waves that invite conscious attention. While the intensity is gentler, the lesson is the same. Survival patterns, early identities, and inherited conditioning must be observed, witnessed, and understood. Both paths converge in the teaching of presence. Whether the energy bursts through like lightning or rises like a slow river, grounding becomes essential. Walking meditation, conscious breath, and deep attention to bodily sensations anchor the individual in the midst of the storm or the quiet shift. For the trauma-driven ascent, attention to the body is the stabilizer that prevents being swept away by fear or grief. For the disciplined ascent, it allows the subtleties of awakening to be felt and integrated, building a resilient foundation for the journey upward. Emotionally, this stage can feel like a confrontation with one's own shadows. The spontaneous rise may bring abrupt waves of anxiety, grief, or anger, sometimes overwhelming the mind. The disciplined rise unfolds these emotions more gradually, yet no less profoundly, revealing hidden patterns that have shaped the self. Dreams reflect these inner movements. Water, shadows, coiled serpents, or even ancestral figures, each a messenger of unresolved karmas. In both journeys, the energy is calling attention to the unexamined roots of identity, survival strategies, and early conditioning. It asks the individual to notice, to feel, and to witness without attachment or avoidance. The body is the first teacher. Tremors, tension, and subtle shivers carry messages that the mind cannot yet fully understand. In the trauma-driven path, the messages may be urgent and insistent. Pay attention. Acknowledge what you have avoided. Do not resist the fear. In the meditation-driven path, they appear as gentle nudges, encouraging mindful presence and deep observation. Awareness becomes the stabilizer, and compassion toward the self becomes the vessel that can hold the energy without being consumed. By the time the root knot begins to soften, both journeys reveal the same truth. Identity is fluid. Survival instincts can be observed rather than reacted to. And old patterns no longer need to define experience. The trauma-driven awakening often leaves scars alongside clarity, while the meditation-driven path fosters a steadier, more integrated emergence. Yet in both, the serpent has begun its ascent. Stage 2. Svadhisthana, the river of emotion. Once the root knot begins to release, the awakening energy flows upward to the sacral region, the seat of emotion, desire, and creative vitality. For those on the trauma-driven path, this stage often feels like a sudden flood, a roller coaster of intense emotions. Deep-seated grief, long suppressed anger, and unresolved longing surge unexpectedly. The body may respond with tension in the pelvis, abdominal cramps, inexplicable waves of heat and pressure, and the release of impurities as energy clears blockages. Memories, both vivid and obscure, rise to the surface, demanding acknowledgement. Dreams may reflect the inner turbulence as rivers swelling, oceans crashing, or torrential rain, symbolic mirrors of the emotional currents seeking expression. Sexual, sensual, or relational karmas may awaken, stirring both longing and aversion. For those experiencing sudden awakening, the emotional body feels like a stormy sea, rocking the vessel of the mind and testing the capacity to remain grounded. In contrast, the meditation-driven path unfolds more gradually. Subtle shifts in the pelvis or gentle pulses in the lower abdomen signal emotional purification without the intensity of sudden floods. Dreams may be quieter, hinting at serene lakes, gentle rainfall, or flowing streams, guiding reflection rather than overwhelming the psyche. The rise of emotion is rhythmic, a tide that comes and goes, nudging the practitioner to observe, witness, and allow feelings to flow without clinging. Even subtle discomfort or arousal can serve as a teacher, revealing hidden patterns in relationships, choices, and habitual responses. Both paths demand attentive presence. Trauma-driven awakenings call for grounding, breath awareness, gentle movement, or mindful sitting to meet the body's urgent signals and integrate sudden surges of emotion. Meditation-driven practitioners cultivate patience and soft observation, allowing the emotional body to gradually soften. Emotional turbulence is not a failure. It is a natural expression of awakened energy navigating the sacral center. By the end of this stage, old attachments loosen, previously hidden desires and emotions gain clarity, and the tide of the sacral center begins to carry karmic residues upward toward the heart, preparing for the next threshold. Vishnu Granthi, the breaking of the middle knot where identity, betrayal, and the heart itself will be confronted. Stage 3, Manipura, solar plexus, plus Anahata, heart. Vishnu, Granthi, the heart and spine awakening. The middle knot, also called the heart knot or Vishnu Granthi, spans both the solar plexus, Manipura, and the heart, Anahata chakras, where personal power, identity, trust, and emotional bonds converge. Awakening here is often described as a turning point, the place where old patterns of control, attachment, betrayal, and suppressed truth rise to meet the soul. For those whose Kundalini has awakened through trauma, this stage can feel as though the body itself is a battlefield. Serpent-like visions may coil along the spine, biting, pressing, or writhing as though to awaken nerves that have lain dormant for lifetimes. Intense back pain or spinal tension can arise suddenly, sometimes radiating to the chest, ribs, or shoulders. Emotional memories may surface with shocking clarity. Moments of betrayal, unresolved anger, grief, or disappointment long buried can erupt in the heart and solar plexus region. Sleep becomes irregular. Vivid, symbolic dreams of confrontation, escape, or revelation dominate the night. Left ear ringing, spontaneous tears, or surges of heat along the spine signal that the energy has begun to pierce the heart and solar plexus. unraveling the tightly wound cords of identity, power, and attachment. In contrast, those on the disciplined meditation-based path feel this energy rising more steadily. Sensations of warmth, subtle tingling, or gentle pressure along the spine accompany the awakening. Emotional challenges appear more like invitations than storms. Old resentments or fears arise for quiet contemplation. Dreams may carry images of sacred spaces, palaces, or divine teachers, gently illuminating areas where attachment or self-limiting beliefs still linger. The body experiences shifts, but the process feels guided and integrative, like a teacher slowly revealing hidden lessons over time rather than forcing them into sudden awareness. For both paths, the challenge is witnessing without losing oneself. The trauma-driven awakening requires immense courage. When old betrayals or heartbreak resurface, there is a temptation to retreat into numbness or control. Yet the energy demands presence. The body may convulse, the mind may panic, and yet staying anchored in breath, gentle movement, and compassionate observation allows the energy to pass through rather than overwhelm. For meditation-based awakenings, the task is subtle but equally profound. To notice, without judgment, the soft stirrings of anger, sadness, or longing that move through the chest and spine. Journaling, mindful reflection, or quiet meditation can illuminate patterns of attachment, revealing not only how the heart has been wounded, but also how it can heal. The symbolic language of dreams and visions during this stage is powerful. Trauma-driven awakenings may present serpents biting, skies darkening, or floods threatening familiar shores, messages of confrontation, of karmic clearing, and of truths long denied. Meditation-driven awakenings offer subtler imagery, bridges between towers, stairways of light, or rivers flowing toward distant horizons, signaling the gradual dissolving of false self-identity and the opening of the heart's awareness. Both are valid expressions of the same transformative process. One manifests as fire and storm, the other as steady water. Yet the destination is identical. Liberation from the knots that bind the heart and spine. Physically, the spine becomes a central axis of energy. For trauma path awakenings, sudden spasms, tingling, or chest constriction may occur. It is as though the energy demands recognition of blocked currents. In meditation path practitioners, the spinal awakening may be more subtle. A rising warmth, light pressure, or quiet pulse that is unmistakable once attention rests on the heart and spine. Awareness of these sensations teaches presence and integration. The body is not merely a vessel, but a map of unresolved karma and unacknowledged emotion. This stage also challenges the ego in profound ways. The trauma-driven path often triggers a temporary collapse of identity. One may feel lost, disconnected, or overwhelmed by the rawness of emotions and bodily sensations. This is not failure. It is the serpent clearing the knots that once maintained safety through control. The meditation-driven path experiences ego softening more gently. Subtle shifts in perspective, emotional equanimity, and clarity in decision-making indicate that attachment to the old self is loosening. In both journeys, the ultimate lesson is witnessing, to observe the storm without being swept away, to allow the serpent to do its work while remaining rooted in awareness. As this energy pierces the middle knot, communication and truth emerge. Voices may quiver, throat tension may appear, or spontaneous mantric vibrations may arise. Words that were once difficult to speak now carry clarity and power. For trauma-driven awakenings, the intensity of expression may be sudden, almost overwhelming, as the heart demands articulation of long-suppressed truths. Meditation-based awakenings allow expression to unfold naturally, a gentle rhythm aligned with the heart's opening and the spine's rising energy. By the end of this stage, the practitioner is profoundly altered. Old identity patterns loosen, emotional clarity emerges, and the heart begins to function as a conduit for higher energy, rather than a storehouse of fear or resentment. For those who followed the stormy, trauma-driven path, the challenge is integration. Grounding, mindful presence, and self-compassion become essential tools to stabilize the newly liberated energy. For the steady meditator, these tools support the gentle unfolding of insight and creativity, allowing the subtle wisdom of the heart to guide action without attachment. This is the turning point. Vishnu Granthi, the heart and spine knot, is both the threshold and the bridge. On crossing it, the awakened energy prepares to ascend to the throat and higher centers, carrying with it the purged residue of fear, attachment, and unresolved emotion. Whether through fire or through steady illumination, the serpent's journey through the heart is profound. It is where identity is tested, where emotional truth confronts consciousness, and where the capacity for love, clarity, and higher awareness is awakened. The lessons learned here are practical, noticing emotional reactions in daily life, observing the body's signals, speaking truths that were once avoided, and moving through fear with conscious presence. Vishnu Granthi is where the soul begins to see its own boundaries dissolve, where the body is both teacher and map, and where every heartbeat and spinal pulse carries a message from the awakened serpent. Both paths, chaotic and disciplined, converge in the same truth. The heart must be fully opened, witnessed, and integrated before the energy can rise toward expression, insight, and union. Stage 4. Vishuddhi Awakening. The throat chakra, Vishuddhi, emerges as the first threshold of expression, where energy rising from the root chakra, Muladhara, and heart chakra, Anahata, begins to articulate itself in speech, sound, and subtle vibration. For those whose energy awakens suddenly through life's upheavals, grief, or deep karmic triggers, the opening of Vishuddhi can feel like a tidal wave crashing through the chest and throat, sudden and uncontrollable. One may awaken in the early hours, between 3 and 5 in the morning, the so-called Brahma Muhurta, pre-dawn, startled by an inner resonance that cannot be ignored. Mantric sounds, whispers, or sighs emerge spontaneously, moving through the body, each vibration demanding release. Dreams may intensify, becoming vivid, symbolic, and urgent. Palaces floating among clouds, stairways ascending into unknown heights, or animals appearing as messengers of the awakened energy. The body itself may pulse with raw sensations, tingling, sudden heat, subtle pressure, forcing full attention to the present moment. Those experiencing this sudden rise learn quickly that resistance only intensifies the storm. Courage is required, not as an abstract concept, but as a felt reality. The willingness to allow the voice, the breath, and the subtle currents of energy, prana, life force, to move freely without interference. For those on the meditation-driven path, Vishuddhi unfolds with a quieter grace. The throat may feel warm, light, or subtly pulsing, like a string tuned to an inner resonance that was always present. Speech becomes clearer, resonant, and truthful, arising naturally rather than forcefully. Dreams carry the guidance of sages, light-filled structures, and palaces, inviting reflection rather than demanding immediate action. The early hours of the morning are embraced deliberately, a sacred opportunity to observe, meditate, and witness the subtle currents within. Energy flows upward through the central channel, Sushumna, spinal energy channel, gradually preparing for the Ajna, third eye, chakra, where intuition and insight begin to unfold. There's no need to fight or force the awakening. Each pulse and sensation invites gentle attention, a nurturing of the vessel that carries the serpent. Kundalini, dormant spiritual energy, is Ascent. In both paths, Vishuddhi demands courage and non-resistance, but the expressions differ. The sudden rise may bring moments of raw vocalization, sudden laughter, crying, or even anger, all triggered by the energy moving rapidly through blocked channels. The meditation-driven path discovers that courage manifests as patience, the ability to allow subtle sensations and sounds to surface without clinging or judgment. In both, the practice of attentive presence is essential. Witnessing the rise of energy, observing emotional responses, and maintaining a grounded connection with the body. Walking, gentle movement, or conscious breath can anchor awareness, preventing overwhelm and offering a container for integration. Symbolic experiences often accompany this stage. The appearance of clouds, stairways, or temples in dreams, the sense of lightness in the upper body, and the perception of synchronicities, unexpected meetings, meaningful coincidences, animals drawn near, signal that the throat chakra is becoming active. These signs, while subtle or dramatic depending on the path, serve as confirmation that energy is moving upward and beginning to interact with the environment. They are not mere illusions. They are manifestations of the body, mind, and life force, energy, adjusting to higher currents of awareness. Emotionally, the sudden rise feels like a confrontation with voice and authenticity. The inner fire demands expression, and suppression is no longer possible. Speech, long-held secrets, or patterns of avoidance become impossible to maintain. The energy insists on truth. For the meditation-driven path, the emotional unfolding is more like a gentle unwrapping. Layers of inhibition dissolve quietly, allowing spontaneous clarity in communication and expression, without confrontation. The mastery of speech, subtle vibration, and inner resonance arises from steady cultivation rather than force. Both journeys converge in a shared lesson. The throat chakra is the bridge from heart to mind, from feeling to articulation. It is here that the energy begins to harmonize internal experience with outer expression. It prepares the individual for the transition into the third eye chakra, where intuition, insight, and the subtle dissolving of ego become the focus. Without courage, awareness, and a willingness to move with the energy rather than against it, the ascent may stall, causing stagnation or frustration. With attentive presence, however, the spiritual energy, Kundalini, moves upward, weaving integration between the past and the future, the body and the subtle senses, the self and the wider world. Witnessing the movement of the throat chakra, whether in storm or calm, is an invitation to align speech, expression, and action with deeper awareness. Both the sudden surge of spontaneous awakening and the gentle rhythm of meditation are valid expressions of this stage. In recognizing these experiences as natural and instructive, you can navigate the energies without fear. Each sound, each dream, each waking at dawn is a teacher, a signal, a guide. The courage cultivated here, whether in surrendering to the tidal wave or embracing the subtle pulse, is the foundation for the next stage, the unfolding of the third eye chakra, where seeing beyond the surface begins and the first hints of the inner light become undeniable. Stage 5. Ajna awakening, third eye, transition stage. The third eye chakra, Ajna, represents the threshold where perception shifts from the ordinary to the subtle, from identification with thought to the recognition of awareness itself. For those whose energy has arisen suddenly through life's upheavals, grief, or karmic currents, this stage can be startling. After surging through the root, sacral, heart, and throat chakras, the energy arrives at the space between the brows with an intensity that cannot be ignored. Inner flashes of light appear unexpectedly, sometimes in the darkness of night, sometimes in the corners of vision during quiet moments. A pressure between the brows may build, like a gentle tightening or pulsating vibration, and the mind, accustomed to narrative and control, can feel unsteady. Dreams intensify, bringing symbolic or prophetic visions, sudden insights, or memories that demand emotional resolution. The inner landscape feels open, revealing truths that cannot be ignored. Those experiencing this sudden rise must navigate the delicate balance between surrendering to the energy and staying anchored in the body. Resistance amplifies discomfort. Surrender allows integration and the unfolding of insight. For those on the meditation-driven path, the third eye awakens like the gradual lifting of a veil. The pressure or subtle sensations between the eyebrows are noticed calmly, a gentle signal of the life force, prana, ascending and awakening perception beyond conventional thought. Dreams carry symbolic imagery, yet arrive as invitations for reflection, guidance, or contemplation, rather than abrupt emotional storms. Intuition blossoms naturally, often manifesting as sudden clarity in decision-making, enhanced pattern recognition, or deep inner knowing that transcends logical analysis. Awareness grows steadily, and the mind learns to observe thoughts as tools rather than masters. The capacity to witness emotions, mental chatter, and external events without being swept away strengthens with consistent mindfulness and meditative practice. In both paths, the third eye marks a subtle yet profound shift in identity. The knot of "I am the doer," so tightly bound in earlier stages, begins to loosen. The sense of self, long tethered to reactions, emotions, and past conditioning, softens. For those experiencing a trauma-driven awakening, this can feel disorienting. Automatic responses to fear, anger, or attachment no longer arise with the same intensity. Old patterns collapse unpredictably, leaving moments of confusion, heightened sensitivity, or even temporary detachment from familiar social or professional roles. Courage here is simply the willingness to inhabit this unfamiliar space, to be present without clinging to the old securities that once defined the self. For the meditation-driven path, the transition into the third eye is smoother, yet no less profound. Awareness of thought patterns, habitual reactions, and identity structures grows with clarity. The third eye functions like a mirror, reflecting truth without judgment. Insights arrive steadily, often accompanied by a serene confidence independent of external validation. One learns to act from presence rather than impulse, respond rather than react, and recognize subtle interconnections that were previously overlooked. Symbolism at this stage is unmistakable. Light flashes, visions of sacred geometry, lucid dream sequences, or vivid intuitive impressions emerge as the mind aligns with the life force, prana, ascending through the subtle channels. Even ordinary experiences take on deep resonance. A brief intuitive sense guiding a conversation, sudden understanding of a situation without reasoning, or spontaneous recognition of impermanence and interconnectedness. Both the sudden intensity and the calm, measured rise point toward the same principle. Higher perception demands presence, observation, and willingness to allow the inner light to reveal itself without force. Grounding practices remain essential. For those on a trauma-driven path, subtle embodiment, feeling the weight of the body, gentle stretching, mindful movement, or breath awareness helps integrate the powerful energy surging through the third eye. On the meditation-driven path, these same practices serve to refine and stabilize perception, preventing distraction or subtle dissociation. In both journeys, self-inquiry becomes invaluable. Observing how identity, thought, and emotion arise and interact, cultivating the witness consciousness that simply notices without interference. The transition from the throat chakra to the third eye marks a pivotal threshold. Energy is now moving toward the crown, yet in the forehead, subtle discernment, intuition, and higher insight begin to mature. This stage is neither the end nor the peak. It is the opening of a door previously hidden. Vision is not only physical, but energetic, perceptual, and intuitive. Whether through the sudden intensity of spontaneous awakening or the measured pulse of meditation, the third eye emerges as a lens for truth, piercing illusion and illuminating the path toward higher consciousness. The third eye awakens not for spectacle, but for integration. It invites living with greater awareness, perceiving subtle cues in body, mind, and environment, and cultivating wisdom that guides compassionate action. Recognizing the shared principles between sudden and gradual awakening, one understands that the Kundalini is both a challenge and a teacher, demanding presence, discernment, and trust in the process. The light between the brows is the first tangible sign of the inner shift from doing to being, from reactive consciousness to witnessing awareness, and from personal identity to the subtle currents of life itself. Stage 6, Sahasrara, approaching, crown chakra, integration. Sahasrara, the 1,000-petaled crown chakra, signals the nearness of integration and alignment with higher consciousness. Trauma-driven awakenings may experience this stage as the culmination of a tempestuous ascent. Energy surges unpredictably from the root, sacral, heart, and throat chakras, gathering at the crown as waves of bliss, expanses of unity, or subtle fountains of energy above the head. Physical sensations vary: tingling spreading from scalp into shoulders, lightness in the body, profound openness, simultaneously exhilarating and disorienting. Emotionally, elation and vulnerability coexist. Familiar identities may feel suspended. Dreams, moments of clarity, and intuitive insights reveal expanded perception, as though ordinary separation has lifted, even briefly. Integration demands patient presence and gentle discernment. Sudden influxes of crown energy must not be wrestled with, but observed. Mindful grounding through breath, posture, and body awareness, provides a vessel for energy to settle. Daily life may reveal heightened sensitivity to others' emotions, subtle synchronicities, or intuitive insights, both magnificent and fragile. The lesson: liberated energy requires care, discernment, and compassionate self-observation. Meditation-driven paths approach Sahasrara gradually. Awareness flows from the crown into mind and heart with serene continuity, accompanied by deep contentment and clarity. Dreams and meditative states reveal guidance-filled imagery rather than abrupt visions. Intuition is continuous, subtly informing thought, speech, and action with quiet certainty. Both paths converge. Scattered currents from lower chakras move toward integration. Life-force descents may reach this stage sooner, but carry intense purification and potential instability. Meditation-driven paths cultivate steady resilience alongside expansion. Classical texts affirm the crown as not merely an ecstatic experience, but a locus for embodying subtle truths awakened in earlier stages. Bliss and wisdom are inseparable from grounded presence. Crown radiance coexists with engagement in body and world. Signs are manifold: waves of bliss, tearful release, sudden laughter, awe-filled stillness. Meditation path individuals experience crown energy as gentle fountains or continuous radiance, signaling unity and integration without abrupt sensation. Both may notice quieting internal dialogue, heightened interconnectedness, or sudden clarity of life's purpose. Grounding remains essential. Life-forced awakenings are anchored by embodied practices: walking, stretching, mindful touch, breath awareness. Meditation path practitioners refine and stabilize awareness through observation and steady presence. Compassion towards self, body, and unfolding life is indispensable. Integration is the essence, living fully with expanded perception without losing touch with the tangible world. Sahasrara, approaching, reminds that the serpent's ascent is not an escape from the world, but integration within it. One inhabits the body fully while sustaining expansive awareness, engaging life compassionately while maintaining subtle currents of consciousness. Bliss, clarity, and unity emerge naturally from careful, compassionate attention to the process, whether through the fire of life-forced awakening or the steady light of disciplined cultivation. As the crown's energy settles and awareness expands, the final threshold emerges: Samadhi, union, full integration. The seamless merging where self and universal consciousness coalesce. Stage 7. Union Samadhi, Shiva Shakti Samayukta. The summit of the Kundalini journey is Samadhi, the full union of body, soul, and source. It is the state where duality dissolves and awareness rests unbroken. For those whose awakening comes suddenly, through intense life experiences or karmic forces, Samadhi feels like stepping into profound silence after a storm. Energy that once surged unpredictably through the root, sacral, heart, and throat settles into deep stillness. Identity, once shaped by fear, attachment, and habit, gradually dissolves. What remains is pure awareness. Bliss arises naturally, accompanied by humility. The storms endured were initiations, necessary for full awakening. Thoughts and emotions no longer dominate. The mind becomes a clear mirror, reflecting reality without distortion. Dreams and meditative insights flow effortlessly. Even residual intensity, brief flashes of fear or emotional stirrings, are met with calm presence, simply because the storms have been lived through. For those whose awakening is gradual, through meditation and disciplined practice, Samadhi is the flowering of sustained attention, compassion, and presence. Awareness feels continuous, luminous, and deeply anchored. The union of body, mind, and spirit manifests as effortless balance. The mind witnesses, the heart opens, and the body flows naturally, without tension or striving. In daily life, this shows as the ability to act with clarity, to communicate with compassion, and to stay grounded even amidst challenges. Dreams and intuitive insights carry a gentle authority, free from earlier turbulence. In both paths, Samadhi is more than an ecstatic experience. It is the integration of all prior stages. Grounding, emotional clarity, insight, and awareness come together as a living whole. Inner and outer realities no longer feel separate. For those attuned to Buddhist mindfulness, it is the luminous state of no self, empty yet full, aware and compassionate. For those rooted in Hindu wisdom, it is the union of dynamic Shakti with static Shiva, the personal merging with the universal, the manifest with the unmanifest. Physical signs are subtle but clear. A deep stillness pervades the body. Heart and breath flow effortlessly. Awareness saturates even the smallest actions. Emotionally, equanimity is not indifference. It is the ability to experience fully without losing clarity. Grounding remains essential, even at this summit. Integration requires continued attention to the body, breath, and surroundings. Union does not remove life's responsibilities. Instead, it transforms the way they're lived. Speech, action, and thought arise naturally from wisdom, discernment, and compassion. Everyday life becomes an expression of awareness rather than a distraction from it. Samadhi is profoundly relational. Others are no longer seen as separate or obstructive. They are recognized as expressions of the same universal energy. Communication, relationships, and interaction carry clarity, empathy, and responsiveness. This is the living embodiment of non-duality, engagement with the world in full awareness without grasping or aversion. Ultimately, Stage 7 is both culmination and continuity. The self is no longer limited by identity, yet fully present in body and world. Life-forced awakening shows that even the wildest storms of energy can lead to integration and peace. The meditation-driven path confirms that steady, disciplined cultivation leads to the same summit. Both paths reveal the same truth. The serpent's ascent is not an escape from life, but a deep attunement to it. Awareness, compassion, presence, and groundedness are not optional. They are the essence of union. In this state, bliss, clarity, and witnessing coexist seamlessly. It is a living wisdom that can be applied moment by moment, breath by breath, in the ordinary flow of life. Grounding the serpent. 6 practices for integration. As Kundalini rises, whether stirred suddenly by life's upheavals and trauma, or awakened gradually through meditation and disciplined practice, the body becomes both vessel and teacher. Energy surges can awaken profound insight, but without grounding, the vessel may feel unstable, the mind scattered, and the heart restless. Grounding and embodiment are not optional. They anchor your awareness and allow rising energy to be met with clarity, patience, and presence. To navigate this journey safely and consciously, 6 practices help integrate the energy fully. Breath as bridge. The breath is the most immediate and accessible tool. Deep, slow, conscious breathing anchors energy in the body, while practices like alternate nostril breathing, balance subtle currents, harmonize the nervous system, and steady both mind and heart. Even simply noticing each inhalation and exhalation can transform turbulence into rhythm. For those experiencing sudden, trauma-driven awakening, conscious breath acts as a stabilizer, offering a safe container for intense surges. For those on the gradual meditation path, it deepens awareness and supports subtle currents, allowing energy to rise with steadiness. The breath becomes a companion that guides the serpent rather than resisting it, forming a foundation for all other practices. Movement and presence. Once the breath has anchored the energy, movement helps the body embody it. When energy rises abruptly, it can feel like a storm contained in muscle and sinew. Even subtle shifts and gradual awakening call for attention. Walking meditation, gentle yoga, or mindful stretching release tension and channel energy safely. The body becomes a map, showing where energy seeks passage. Allow knees to bend, hips to sway, and the spine to awaken gradually. Small gestures, raising the arms, rotating the shoulders, rocking slowly, invite presence and reinforce embodiment. Supporting the body with mindful daily acts, drinking water slowly, choosing nourishing foods, or grounding with warm herbal tea helps process heightened energetic shifts, stabilizing the system and providing a grounded vessel for the serpent. Rooting in sensation. Beyond breath and movement, grounding involves reconnecting with the physical world. Touch, weight, and sensory awareness integrate subtle currents of energy. Standing barefoot on the earth, feeling textures under your hands, or noticing the pressure of your body against a chair restores balance. Visualizing energy descending to your feet and flowing into the ground strengthens this connection, while honoring the upward movement of the serpent. Rest is equally important. Even short periods of lying down, allowing the spine to settle and the heart to soften, integrate the insights and shifts awakened by intense energy. For trauma-driven awakening, these moments counterbalance surges, providing stability. For meditation-driven awakening, they support reflection and deep embodiment. The serpent weaves through body, vessel, and world simultaneously. Honoring the body's need for recovery is essential. Journaling and reflection. Observing emotional surges, dreams, and bodily sensations with pen in hand cultivates mindful witness consciousness. Writing becomes a container for sudden, intense currents and a mirror for steady, disciplined shifts. Noting patterns, symbols, or recurring sensations illuminates the subtleties of each stage, helping integrate lessons fully. Trauma-driven awakenings often yield dramatic insights. Journaling gives structure and space. Meditation-driven awakenings reveal subtler patterns. Journaling captures and reinforces these gentle discoveries. Subtle awareness practices. Continuous awareness throughout the day maintains connection. Meditation, mantra, or simple observation of bodily sensations anchor consciousness in the present. Pausing before speaking, noticing the weight of the body in a chair, or observing the rise and fall of the chest links, mind and body. Even brief moments of observation reinforce system integrity, allowing energy to ascend without fracture. When intensity becomes overwhelming or grounding feels insufficient, seeking support from a trusted practitioner, therapist, or teacher is wise. External guidance offers stability and helps integrate energy safely. The guiding principle. Grounding is not about suppressing or controlling the serpent. It is about creating a container strong enough to hold it. Presence, awareness, patience, and compassion form the vessel. The body, mind, and heart become allies, enabling energy to integrate fully, safely, and harmoniously. For sudden awakenings, these practices prevent overwhelm and cultivate resilience. For gradual awakenings, they deepen embodiment and clarity. Through them, the rising serpent transforms from a force of turbulence or subtle movement into a teacher, guiding insight, clarity, and embodied awakening. The serpent within you. The serpent within is neither enemy nor stranger. It is the very life force of being, waiting patiently or rushing fiercely, depending on the soul's readiness. For some, it awakens suddenly, ignited by life's upheavals, trauma, or intense emotional storms. For others, it rises gradually, cultivated through meditation, discipline, and deep inner work. Yet both paths converge on the same essential truth. This energy is a mirror of consciousness, revealing what has been hidden, suppressed, or ignored. Awareness becomes the greatest ally. Whether the rise is abrupt or measured, the body speaks in tremors, heat, pressure, dreams, and subtle sensations. The mind may resist, recoil, or even fear what it cannot control, yet each wave of energy carries a message: observe, feel, and accept. Patience is essential. Rushing or forcing the process only stirs turbulence. Compassion toward oneself acts as a vessel, holding the intensity without being consumed. The 7 stages, from Brahma Granthi, root, through Svadhisthana, sacral, Vishnu Granthi, heart, Vishuddhi, throat, Ajna, third eye, Sahasrara, crown, and finally union, each teach the delicate art of witnessing. Each stage is a doorway to the self, to the cosmos, and to the luminous potential that lies dormant until awakened. For those stirred by trauma, the lessons may arrive as fire, fierce, challenging, and transformative. For those awakened through meditation, the lessons flow like a river shaping stones, persistent, subtle, yet equally powerful. Both journeys are valid, and both lead to the same summit, the full integration of body, soul, and source. Life itself becomes a teacher. The synchronicities, dreams, and subtle signs that accompany the serpent's rise are not mere coincidences. They are invitations to presence, reminders that the body, mind, and spirit are attuning to something larger. Inner shadows, old fears, and inherited patterns are illuminated not to punish, but to free. One learns to move through life with steady attention, compassionate discernment, and deepening clarity, recognizing that every challenge is a step along the path. Ultimately, the serpent asks for trust. It asks for patience, for witnessing without interference, for surrender to what is beyond control. Yet it does not demand passivity. It asks for conscious living, for the integration of insight into action, for the cultivation of love, wisdom, and clarity in every moment. When the energy reaches the crown, when identity dissolves and awareness rests in unbroken peace, it is not the achievement of one part of life over another. It is the harmonization of all, a union of being and consciousness, body and spirit, suffering and bliss. Reflect on your own journey. Which stage have you entered? Which path has life chosen for you? The sudden awakening that shakes the foundations, or the patient unfolding cultivated through presence and practice? Whatever the path, the companion that ensures safety, growth, and lasting peace is the same. Grounded awareness, patience, compassion, and the courage to witness the inner serpent rise. In embracing this force, in learning from it, and allowing it to move through every level of being. The gates of understanding, freedom, and luminous presence open. The serpent is not outside. It is within, calling, rising, and revealing the boundless potential of a fully awakened life. The serpent rises within, your guide to freedom, wisdom, and the luminous life that has always been your birthright. If this wisdom resonates with you, please like this video and subscribe to join us on the path of conscious living.